You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 on Instagram and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast with Benny Gold. Today we welcome in Cheree McAlpine, Chief Legal Officer at Zoom, located in San Jose, California. How are you?
I'm doing well, Benny. So happy to be here. Nice to meet you and excited about the podcast.
Thank you so much. Likewise. And yes, I did say Zoom for everybody listening. Zoom was like such a huge thing this past couple years. Big shout out to Zoom for keeping Lawyer Stories going. Excuse me. We had a few virtual events, networking events when I was first starting to meet everybody in the community. We use Zoom for our podcast. And we're super excited to have you here with us. So first off, I want to just say congratulations on your position that you got in March. We're in July now, so it's really pretty new.
It's very new.
So congratulations.
Thank you. I mean, the story is similar to what you just described. I wanted to join a company that has an impact on people's lives, and Zoom, above any other company, taught us that we can endure a pandemic. And and without Zoom during the pandemic, we would not have had some of the connections that we so sorely needed. My own personal story, I had aging parents who were living in a rural community, and I wanted to connect with them. And I just sent my cousin over to their house and I said, just tell them to press that button. It's
Press the
free.
button.
And they can see me and my brother, and I'm not going to say that Zoom saved their lives, but it certainly had an impact on their mental health.
Sure. And I mean, I think Zoom is like the foremost at the forefront. I mean, I think it's just something that everybody turned to over. I mean, even with my friends, we do a little tailgate before a football game, and they live elsewhere, and we would just meet up on Zoom. So it's really cool. And there's a lot of stuff that you're doing. Like there's AI, and you're just trying to pull it together. I think it's a super interesting job too. I mean, it's obviously a huge responsibility, and a lot of lawyers out there and legal professionals are probably pretty interested in what you're doing there for Zoom. But we'll get into that because I want to hear about your backstory first. Just tell us a little, where were you born and raised?
So I am from rural Alabama. I grew up in a really tiny town in Alabama. It was so rural, Benny, that at one point my address was Rural Route 1. That gave me an indication of how rural it was. It's a small town on the Alabama-Georgia border, but it's also a town that I continue to go back to very often. I have family there. I have strong ties to the community, and I think people have perceptions about what it means to be in a rural community. But for me, it was a great childhood and a great experience growing up. I was raised by a single mother, and she raised two children quite well in rural Alabama.
Wow, that's awesome. That's a cool story. Rural Route 1. So is that the location, or do they just kind of is there a Rural Route 2? Who would be there?
There actually is a Rural Route 2, but there wasn't a Rural Route 3. So
Gotcha.
It was a very small county method of identifying neighborhoods in the community at that time. They no longer use that system, thank God.
Yeah.
But for a while there, it was Rural Route 1, and it was a very rural town.
Gotcha. Okay. So we haven't featured you on Lawyer Stories on Instagram. We're going to do that soon. But I did just look at your story. I want to obviously get a background. And you wrote in your lawyer story that you didn't grow up knowing any lawyers. So what inspired you to? So my question is what inspired you to go to law school, and what was the moment that you knew you wanted to attend law school?
Yeah, so you're right. There weren't a lot of lawyers beating down my path in rural Alabama. I didn't know any lawyers, and in fact, Benny, I didn't meet my first lawyer until I was in law school. I
Wow.
didn't. My only connection, I think, to lawyers, which was very common to a lot of people in rural communities, was the TV. Probably not
Right.
just rural communities, in a lot of communities. But I'm a corporate lawyer, so even on TV, they were more litigators. They were trial
Right.
lawyers. They were trial
Right.
lawyers who, at the end of 50 minutes, solved all the problems. And that was kind of my perception of a lawyer. It was nothing like the reality of being a lawyer. So I went undergraduate at University of Alabama. I majored in English literature,
Right.
and I'm from this rural community. 4 years passed by. I'm graduating, and oh no, what am
Mhm.
I going to do with an English literature major in rural Alabama or in Alabama in general? But I had also been an RA. And so I applied to a lot of universities to become an RD. It was becoming more of a profession at that time. And
Okay.
I ended up as an RD in Boston.
What's the
And
RD? So RA,
resident advisor, RA,
assistant, or okay,
resident
director. Gotcha.
director is the
Okay.
RD. And so I ended up in Boston as an RD. And I thought at that time, okay, I'm going to have a career in higher ed. I'll be like a dean of students or
Sure.
something like that. And, at the time, universities were having a lot of legal issues. And so I thought, I'm going to have a career in higher ed. I'll go to law school because then I don't have to go and get a PhD and do all of that work. My advanced degree will be a law degree. And so that was kind of my first inkling about going to law school. And then I'm in law school and I realize, some of the stuff is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Uh, some of it is a little bit more fascinating, but I thought even at that time, I thought of law as litigation, and I thought,
Okay.
I if I decide to become a lawyer, I'll definitely be a litigation. I was really good at
Really?
advocacy,
Okay.
all of those types of programs. I'm absolutely going to be a litigator. Graduate from law school, I had clerked for a judge in Middlesex County.
Okay.
I asked him for references. Who do you know? I think I want to be a litigator. I ended up moving to California, applying for jobs in California, and got a job at Walgotchal. And
Wow.
their corporate practice was very, very busy, and they had just started their San Francisco office, and they didn't have a litigation practice. They had patent litigation, but I
Okay.
clearly didn't know anything about that. And so I ended up getting thrown into a corporate practice, and I thought, oh, this is going to be a disaster. I don't know a corporate lawyer. I don't know very much about corporate law. If I'm going to go down this path, it was clear that it needed to be litigation because that's the only thing that I can relate to. And I tell you, and I tell this story often, a partner walked by my office one day, and he walked by and he stopped and he came back and he looked at my name on the door and he looked at me and he said, "Hey, you're new here, aren't you?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "What are you working on?" I said, I'm literally just sitting down at my desk." And he said, "Come with me."
Uh-oh.
And I I got up from my desk and I followed him, and I ended up following him for two different law firms, and that began my career as a
Really?
corporate
Oh, so he was like, follow me to like my next
to
step.
my meeting. He followed me to my meeting, and I'm sitting in this meeting, and he's talking to a client, and it's an M&A deal. He was a securities lawyer. And coming out of at some point in the meeting, I realized, oh, I probably should be taking notes.
Yeah.
And so it just was the beginning of an amazing opportunity, an amazing career. Silicon Valley was a very interesting place
Yeah.
at that
Yeah.
time. I never thought I'd be a tech lawyer. I never thought I'd be a corporate lawyer. And I've only ever been a tech lawyer and a corporate lawyer, and I have loved it.
And you stayed with the same guy like for two jobs? Like
I
you
stayed
kind of,
for two different firms, and then I eventually went in-house. I
okay.
wanted to be closer to the business. That's what I loved. I loved the partnership that happens when you do that at a law firm. There's a lot of different clients, but I really loved rolling up my sleeves,
Yep.
learning the business. How does my legal advocacy advance the business? And I tell you, it is that love of the business and how it melds with the law that has led me on this long journey as a corporate lawyer to where I am today at Zoom.
Yeah, you have a very, very impressive resume there of where you've been before Zoom and then coming in here in March. I just want to comment one thing on law school. I know we kind of passed that, but first of
Yeah,
all, Boston. Like I live in Massachusetts, so go Celtics. That's super cool. You
yeah,
went to Suffolk Law. Okay, that's a
yeah.
very good law school around here. But also, you mentioned earlier, like you didn't, you never met a lawyer like before going to law school. Like so that to me, like that strikes me like that's something pretty strong about your character and who you are, like being able to just enter law school, like never meeting a lawyer, sort of just like, I think this is for me, I like this, and then like succeeding. I think that that's like huge.
Yeah, you know what? It was, I love the risk taking. I love that this created an opportunity because, of course, I didn't want to, return to rural Alabama.
Sure.
And I love the opportunities that it presented to me. And even sitting in those classes that first year and meeting my first lawyer and starting to really develop an understanding of what lawyers do, and I still wasn't quite convinced that I would be a lawyer. Again, I thought
Right.
this will supplement other things. And I always, even when I talk to lawyers, students in law school today, I always think, you don't have to be a lawyer to be in law school. A law degree can help you with many other things. And so I think that was my frame of mind,
Mhm.
at least that first year. And I think it was only in about the second half of the second year that I start to take a legal career more seriously.
Okay. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so you do have the good litigation experience. I mean, you went to Wheel Golf Shell's like a huge firm. I mean, they're in everywhere. Well, I know
Yeah.
they're in Manhattan and they're just
Yeah.
all around. So
Yeah. They're a big
that's pretty.
firm. They're a big firm. But never one day of litigation. And as a GC, of course, I have to manage litigation, but I let the litigators do the litigating, and I do the managing of the litigators who are doing the litigators because it would be a disaster for me to try a case with my corporate background.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's smart, to kind of stay doing what you're focused on. So it seems like a lot of what you were doing was sort of timing, right? Like how much has timing played a role in like getting your jobs and moving to Silicon Valley at the right time?
I think timing plays a big role in it. And it's also kind of seizing opportunities when they are placed in front of you,
Hmm.
and being bold about that, and believing in yourself and thinking that you can do things and achieve things. The partner looked at me one day and said, "Follow me," and I was not afraid to to
Yeah.
to follow him in that meeting and to go to two firms. And it really just solidified my confidence as a lawyer. The types of projects, it was the dot-com period, the
Mhm.
types of projects that I was working on were really transforming the technology industry. I worked with partners who had a lot of confidence in my skill, probably more confidence than I had in my own skill
Yeah.
at the
Wow.
beginning, but really had a lot of confidence, and I learned a lot. And it really did set that course for where I am today.
Yeah. That's great. So I mentioned you have incredible experience at like some really well-known corporate
Yeah.
entities, and so I'm just curious, like, and I'm sure a lot of people out there are curious, like, what qualities and characteristics do you really need to succeed at like a C-suite legal position? What is it? What does it take as a person?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, of course, you gotta decide if that's where you wanna be.
Mhm.
It's not I once had a CEO that I worked for who said, "Every day is not a high five day." And so
Yeah.
if you're looking for the nonstop high five days, then please don't run in the direction of the C-suite, run in a different direction. Uh, you know, uh, what it takes is someone who, first of all, wants to be there, who understands the business, who's willing to roll up the sleeves and operationalize the legal aspects of the job.
Hmm.
If I needed someone to just tell me the law, who just tells me the risk, then outside counsels are great for that.
Right.
But what makes an in-house lawyer special and what makes an in-house lawyer at the C-suite level special is that we're not just lawyers, we're also business people, and we're able to operationalize the legal piece of it to help solve problems for the company. I always tell my team, and I tell young lawyers when I talk to them, the in-house lawyer's role is to help mitigate risk for the company, but also to help drive business success. You can't have one without the other. And if you
Mm.
want to sit in the C-suite, you need to understand that role of mitigating risk, but you also need to understand what that means to put on the business hat to try to drive
Okay.
business success. And
Gotcha.
that's the important, yeah.
Is the legal department at Zoom big? Like, do you have people like attorneys who are working there, and how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, our legal department is over 100 people globally, but
Wow.
that includes lawyers, that includes contract managers, that includes
Mhm.
paralegals. We also manage trust and safety, which is just not monitoring our sites, but when issues of fraud or cyber issues come up related to our site, we also handle those as a legal department as well.
Okay. So what advice do you have for young professionals wanting to make it into C-suite?
I would say be strategic about your career. Be very thoughtful about where it is you want to go. Talk to people who've gotten there, find out how they got there, create your own map, your own plan on how you're going to get there. Benny, I think the biggest problems that sometimes young lawyers make or young professionals make is that they think, I'll sit here and I'm just going to work super hard.
Hmm.
I'm just going to and my hard work will be recognized and I will have the success that I want to have.
Hmm.
You need more than that. You need more. You need to know how to be a self advocate. You need to know how to build relationships. You need to know how to solve problems. And you need to know how to, I'll call it, have a little ability to promote the good works and things that you're doing so
Okay.
that it gets the in the right places. And I think oftentimes young professionals are too shy to do some of those
Yeah,
things,
yeah.
don't recognize value in doing some of those things, or saying, or most often is, I'm just going to sit here and let my hard work speak for itself.
Okay.
Hard work speaks for itself, and people may recognize the hard work that you're doing. That's only a piece of it. You've got to
Right.
be able to demonstrate that you can do other parts as well.
Well, I think that that's a great combination. What all of that, what you just said, those elements, and yeah, you do have to be like, you have to work hard, but there's so much more than that. The self promotion and there's just so much more than that than just being able to work hard and put your head down and grind, I guess. So that's really good advice. Thank you. So I'm curious too, like what kind of issues, like in the legal department, are we handling over at Zoom?
I mean, look, we are a AI first company, and it is an exciting time to be a tech lawyer because we are talking about AI and legal issues related to AI all the
Yeah.
time. A
Wow.
lot of these issues are matters of first impression, so there's not a lot of specific laws around AI. There's
Sure.
not a lot of specific guidelines to help us chart our course. And so in a lot of respects, we're charting our own path with other companies to make sure that we're doing it in a responsible way. I'll give you an example. One of the biggest things that we talk about at Zoom is the responsible use of data, right? And so making sure
Okay.
that we're doing it responsibly and ethically, but also that we're doing it legally and mindfully.
Okay. That's interesting, and that definitely that's. I mean, obviously, you're collecting. I don't know how much data, but a lot. So you have to like protect that, make sure it's not leaked or whatever, like mitigate risk, like we talked about earlier, right?
Zoom does not collect customer data to
Okay.
train our model.
Gotcha.
So that's
Okay. I didn't mean to say that. I wasn't trying to tell
yeah.
that
Zoom does
Zoom.
not do that. We're very deliberate about doing that, and we're very outspoken
Gotcha.
about
Okay. All right. Good. Sorry about that. That was a mistake on my part.
yeah, I'm so glad that I get to go on record with that once again because it's important to our customers.
Okay, good. That is important. So do you think the legal issue, and I know this was sort of before your time, but do you think the legal issues and what the discussions have changed since COVID with with Zoom at Zoom in general? Like, has there been any? Have you seen it? Have they? Did they see anything different because of COVID and like the increased use? Maybe.
I think that COVID was not just unique to the legal department at Zoom. I think
Sure.
I was a lawyer at a different company during the pandemic,
Right.
and some of the biggest challenges that we had, which Zoom had and other companies, it was the workforce and how do you deploy the workforce during a pandemic, and how do you do it in a way that keeps people safe, that's responsible, but also keeps the doors open and keeps the enable our ability to provide products to our customers. I think Zoom had that challenge. The company that I was at during the pandemic had that challenge, and companies around the world had the challenge of keeping workers safe. I think in this post-pandemic environment, it's been about how do we return to work?
Hmm.
How do we, what are not just legal considerations, but also business considerations in returning to work? I think that has probably been one of the if you walk into any C-suite or any management meeting, that's probably a topic that's been on people's mind and been part of the agenda at most companies.
Okay, makes sense. So what's it like to be a lawyer in tech? I know you've had some great experience. Like, tell us about it.
Yeah, for someone who was a English literature major, not an engineer, not not a biologist, not a chemist, does not have a
Yeah.
science background. I have loved every minute of being a tech lawyer. And what has been interesting about it for me is that I've been doing this for a very long time. And so I've seen the different iterations of technology. I was there for the dot-com phase. I was
Right.
there for internet phase. I was there for the social media phase. And now I get to be here for the AI phase. And so you get
Mm.
to see what technology is capable of doing, and not just how it stabilizes economies and drive economies, but really just the innovation and the creation and what we're capable of as humans, and
Yeah.
just really pushing technologies in ways that hopefully will make our lives better.
Do you see any threat to like lawyers with AI?
Yeah, people ask me this all the time. I think it's going to make our jobs better. I think there's something that is so unique and necessary about how risk is balanced by lawyers.
Mm-hmm.
It's nuance, and I don't think machine learning yet has really understand that nuance and that situational awareness that
Mm.
lawyers bring to how we provide advice and counsel. So I'm less concerned about that. I think that technology and AI may be something that we can use to make our jobs better.
Mm.
Imagine, using AI and machine learning to help with contract management, to help with
Right.
negotiation and execution of commercial agreements. Imagine, how we use this for entity management around the world and outside counsel management.
Sure.
All of those things, I think we are starting to see AI in these areas, and I think we will continue to see AIs. I'm less concerned about the threat to the profession, but I do think if there's any threat to the profession, it's for those who are not willing to embrace technologies and
Mm.
find out ways in which we can use it to make our lives better.
Yeah, I know you mentioned your parents getting on Zoom and like trying to press the button. Like, how would you go about like kind of presenting technology to somebody who's not so tech savvy?
Yeah, I mean, case in one, it was definitely my parents during the pandemic. At the end of the day, I think you make that case as to how it improves lives, right?
Right.
How it will make your experience better. Whether it is, driving an electric car that helps the environment, or whether it is pressing the button because now you can see my face when you talk to me, and we can have this great podcast, and we
Yeah.
can read read each other's facial expressions, and all of those things are great. Making that case on how it improves lives and how it's easy. The user experience has to be one that is easy and friendly, that makes people so engaged that they are not afraid of it, that they want to embrace it. You and I both have had experiences with technology that have just not been user friendly, has been just kind of clunky. We're less
Right.
inclined to kind of go back to that experience. But when the experience is easy and useful and it makes things better, I think we're running towards it.
Oh, totally. I mean, I think Zoom has been so helpful and really like easy and user friendly. I have a subscription for lawyer stories because I don't I want to keep the chatting going, and I think it's just having multiple conversations and bringing multiple people in. So it's been a great experience. So what have you learned? What are some couple lessons that you've learned along the way in your career? I mean, you've had some incredible jobs. I have some of them listed here. I don't need to, I don't need to go into all of them, but like just, I mean, one thing after another. Like first of all, like how did you manage to make those like transitions between such like amazing places and like build such a good resume for yourself? What's a good trick? And I know you did talk about self promotion, but
I think even more than self-promotion, it is when you're building the resume, make sure you're building the reputation in the right way. Most of my jobs, certainly my GC level jobs, have not come from seeing a job posting where I sent in a resume and got a call. It comes from headhunters who know me,
right,
or other CEOs or CFOs who know me or have worked with me who said, "Hey, I think Sheree would be great for this job," or pick up the phone and give her a call and at least talk to her. And
right.
so I think that reputation of is very important. What happens now, and I'll let everybody in on a secret, but what happens now is the back channel, right? I can give you 5 references, and people are like, yeah, well, I know those 5 people are going to say great things about you, but
Mm,
I have all these people who know you and know me on LinkedIn. Those are the people that I want to talk to. And so just making sure that when you're in the legal profession, everybody's not going to like you, because sometimes it's just an adversarial profession. It is
sure.
an adversarial profession, but even when the people don't like you, respect the work that you're doing, respect the work that you're bringing to the table, and making sure that reputation is solid. And I will tell you that in order to be a successful person in the C-suite, in order to be a successful chief legal officer, chief financial officer, you've got to fall in love with the problems.
Mm,
You've got to be able to see the problems, solve problems, and be known as someone who can solve problems and fix problems that help drive, whether it's revenue, whether it is operational efficiency, whether it is the right level of risk management for a company, but you've got to fall in love with the problems and be willing to fix those problems that you're falling in love with. It's easy to fall in love with the solutions, and it's easy to celebrate the victories, but it's those people who recognize problems and said, I'm gonna love all over this problem until I fix it. Those are the people who typically you see in the C-suite and typically have been successful. And that's some of the reasons why I'm sitting in front of you today.
is that a mindset shift, or is that sort of like, I actually, I really heart for these problems type of thing? Because like I say, like sometimes if I'm asked, I say I love the journey. Like I know this is so different, but I like the lawyer stories journey. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not, it's fine if it takes a little while. I'm enjoying the journey. So like you're talking about, and I don't know if, I mean, like if technically like they're just looking at the reasoning behind both of them, just I curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to love the journey, because the journey gets you to the part where you're the executive making executive level decisions. That doesn't happen overnight, and it's not always a straight line, right? And so that journey sometimes have twists and turns. And so, yeah, you got to love the journey as well. I do think it is akin to falling in love with the problems, but you've got to find out where are the weak spots, where are the pain points, where are the points that are barriers to a company's executing? Where are the problems that are holding back revenue? And what can I do as a lawyer to help ease some of those barriers?
Okay.
Uh, and you can't solve everything overnight. And so it is a
Sure.
journey and trying to kind of figure out.
Sure.
Um, but my job, sitting on the C-suite, being responsible to other members of executive management team, shareholders, and a board, is to make sure that I'm as equally focused on problem solving as I am on all the other things that I have to do in my job.
So like where do you even start? Like when you take on this huge role at Zoom, right? Like where do you even start to be like, okay, like I need to figure out the problems and the weak spots and the pain points. Like I mean, you've been there since March. Like I don't know what I would honestly. I'd probably be, reading the manual or something. I don't know.
There's no you put together a 90-day plan,
Okay.
and that, I think at the top of that plan always has to be your listening and learning tour,
Okay.
right? Where you're meeting with leaders and you're asking them those questions. What's going well? What's not going well?
Okay.
Most proud of? How can I help? How can I really help? And then you kind of you take that back and you operationalize the feedback that you've gotten, and you form a plan. I like to call it, during the first 90 days, the 90-day plan, because it's about listening and learning, and because you're not just meeting with executives, you're also meeting with your team,
Yeah.
you're meeting with key stakeholders, and you're starting to form a sense over time about how you can bring value to an organization. And I always say to leaders that I work with is that at the end of the 90 days, what I need to be able to demonstrate is that I've been listening, I learn, I can put together my 1 year strategy, but ultimately I'm starting to give you an indication that I can bring value to the organization.
Okay.
And that's the important piece, is that I'm thinking, is this a job where I think I can bring value to? Absolutely. And do the key stakeholders, my management, my team, my subordinates, my peers, is everybody else starting to form that same opinion about me and my ability to bring value? That's critically important.
That's super helpful actually to like know that you're talking to this one, that one, and is it usually just I don't want to say higher ups, but is there like a level? Do you talk to like I don't know what other positions there are at Zoom, but is it everybody? Like how many people would you say to you talk to, or maybe you have your staff talk to them to like organize some sort of like a position?
I think it is your peers, your manager, your immediate staff, and then other key stakeholders, because there could be
Okay,
people in key roles that don't fit into any of those other
sure.
three, but they could be the holder of the information that you need to help you start forming your opinion
Got
about
it.
how you're going to bring value. And so even before day one, before I even start a job, I'm reading the 10Qs, I'm reading the 10Ks, I'm looking at press releases, I'm looking
Yep.
at the products and how the products and who are the customers, and starting to form an opinion about, oh, I want to make sure that I'm touching people who are responsible for these things, because I
Gotcha.
know they're going to have critical information that will help me in my 90-day plan.
That's amazing. So, Sheree, do you ever see trends after talking to people? Is that what happens? Like you start to see trends of like, okay, well, this person sort of mentioned that, and then like this thing looks like it's kind of trending to what this person said. Is that
I think it's very common for
okay?
people to for there to be some consensus around what certain pain points are, oftentimes
Okay.
because they've been pain for a while. And so until somebody falls in love with it and is willing to tackle it on, then there'll probably always be a consensus that certain things are problems. So the answer
Okay.
to that question is yes, there's oftentimes one or two or three or even more where the more people you talk to, the more people are saying, hey, if you can help us with this would be great. But then you also get some things that are unique. And then you get some things that you say, yeah, that's important, but that's not going to be my 90-day focus. That may be my 1 year focus, or that may be something that my team will handle, or maybe that's for another department.
It's amazing. I think I might like adopt that at my full-time job and call it the Cheree model.
There you
No,
go. There
because
you
I no, because I have done that. Like I've talked to the like people, but I don't do it as often as I should. To like to figure out like a lot of those things. I do it as much as I can. I talk to people here and there, but it's not really like systematic.
Yeah.
It's like you definitely have you obviously know what you're doing, been doing it for a while. Like you had amazing jobs, and you have a system. You're already checking out A, B, and C person before you step foot in the C suite. So that's really interesting. Thanks for sharing that. So who inspires you, and what inspires you?
I love that question because I think I'm inspired most by everyday people who show up as their authentic selves and people
Okay,
who are
like that.
be, willing to be creative, willing to be funny, willing to take risk. I love seeing people who um, will buck the trend, who are willing to kind of walk to their own beat. Those are the people that um, always get my attention. As you know, the legal profession is not one where you can buck the trends a lot.
Yeah,
It's one where you've got to be persuasive, where judgment matters, where perceptions matters. And so I always am curious and inspired by people who whether it's in the legal profession, in the business, or even outside, who are willing to do things like start their own podcast,
yeah.
but willing to kind of do things that are creative and try new things and do that independent of others' perceptions.
Cool. I like that. That's really cool. So you recently spoke, and I know I'm gonna butcher how I say this. This shows maybe a sophistication level. But in France, was it France?
Yeah, hands.
Cannes, okay.
Yeah,
So and advancing equality. I just wanted
yeah.
to ask you about that a little bit, like what that was like speaking there, and like maybe what your message was.
Yeah, I mean, it was a wonderful experience. First of all, you're in the south of France, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. All right. That sounds cool. I mean, I've been to
Too
Paris
bad about that.
years ago.
And Cannes Lions it's a huge event that is held annually, and it's largely marketing, advertising, professionals, but is expanded. And I was there as part of the Female Quotient's Advancing Equality Initiative, and it was really talking about um, uh, advancing equality in the workplace and how showing up as your authentic self helps you feel that you're in a safe space and how do you protect safe space, and then what happens when people or what are the triggers of stress and trauma in the workplace when
Wow.
people don't feel connected. And so I was asked to speak about that, and it was just great. And one of the best things about that is someone quoted me who was in the audience and tagged me in the quote, and I was like, I was so excited about that because I thought people were there, they were listening, and they took something away from it.
Sure. Yeah. No,
Yeah,
that's great. That's a great feeling for
yeah,
sure. And so, Sheree, 1 year ago, you were named top 100 diverse leaders in tech. Um,
yeah.
so, what does that honor mean to you?
Look, for a young Black girl growing up in rural Alabama who never knew any lawyers until they were
Yeah,
actually in law school,
amazing.
to be called one of the most diverse lawyers in tech, be on that list of top 100, it means a lot to me because it means that maybe other young girls in rural communities or young boys in rural communities of all colors but who have never seen a lawyer may have an opportunity to see themselves and their future careers through me and to
Love it.
see that the sky is full of unlimited potential for everyone.
Love it. That's great. Um, so, just going back a little bit to Zoom, tell us a little bit about. I think this was a quote. Zoom is revolutionizing collaboration and shaping how the world works.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty straightforward, but I'd like to hear it from you a little bit.
I said that and I truly meant it because I think everybody gets both pieces of it, but revolutionizing collaboration is the story that I shared with my parents because
Mm,
I was really sensing from the phone that they were just wasting away over time. They were in a community where they were isolated and having the ability to connect with us um, through over video really, I think, save their mental health. And my story was not a unique story. Everybody had a Zoom pandemic story about connection, whether it
sure.
was the happy hours that people were doing on Friday evening, or how they were connecting and continuing to work, or talking to their parents, or talking to their children, or talking across countries. Everybody had a story, and that is revolutionizing how we were able to collaborate in a crisis. And I love that
Love that.
about Zoom.
Yeah.
Um, and it is also revolutionizing how we work. I think on the day that we all decided that we had to go home and we weren't going to be going to the office, there was a lot of fear
Right.
on how we would connect, how we would continue to work, how would the economy continue to survive with people not in the office. And what we've discovered through Zoom is that we were able to work quite efficiently
Mm,
remotely.
that's
Uh,
true. Yep.
we were able to continue to do the business that we needed to do because of the wonderful tool that Zoom was. And so when I think about revolutionizing collaboration and how we work, no one has taught us better than Zoom on how to do that.
Yeah. No, I love that collaboration. That's in a crisis. I think that's an amazing way to put it. So, what's up next for Sheree?
Well, every day is fun. I love being a lawyer. I love being a lawyer at Zoom. I love the legal challenges and legal opportunities that a job like that. I love the team and what we're trying to do with Zoom Workplace is just it's just a lot of fun. But I also like to have fun. It's the summer. I'll take a holiday. I love Bikram yoga.
Nice.
I do that, and I'm trying to work my way through the top 100 restaurants in the world,
Really?
and, and I've done about half of the ones that are on my list, and so that's one of the things that keeps me motivated, keeps me fun, and that I do that
Yeah.
is independent of the legal profession.
That's totally fun. So, tell us about like one of the best meals you've had, or like where was it? And
So that's always the second question that people ask me. I had a whole show on. I was interviewed at Zoom about the top 100 restaurants because someone got word that I've been working my way through the list. My number one restaurant in the world just happens to be the number one restaurant in the world. And it's a restaurant in Lima, Peru called Central. And it is wonderful cuisine. It is edible food. It is great service. It is just enough fancy to be kind of at the top of the list, but not too fancy that it is inedible. It is a wonderful restaurant. It is also number one on the list. It was number one on the list and
wow.
then kind of fell off, and now it's number one again. And there's a reason for that because the food is delicious.
And you've been there once.
I've been there twice.
So, what do you look for when you go into these restaurants?
Number one above everything else is taste.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah, sure.
there are other things like creativity and service and what are the options? I like the tasting menu because I like to these are restaurants that if you're lucky, you go to twice, but most of these restaurants, if you're
Sure.
lucky, you'll go once. And so I like the tasting menu because I want to try as many things as possible. And so at the end of a tasting menu, it is, did I enjoy everything on the menu, or did I
Wow.
just enjoy uh, one or two things on the menu? A great restaurant means that that entire setting was fantastic, and that's not always the case.
Now, are these top 100, is that like sort of like the Michelin or like summer Michelin, or is that?
Yeah, the list is not the same.
It's
Obviously, if
not the
you're
same.
considered,
Yeah.
it's not the same. Obviously, if you're considered to be, Michelin has a list, obviously, but if you're considered to be some of the tops in the world, then most of these are Michelin starred restaurants. But Fooders has a list, Travel Magazine has a list,
Wow.
and yeah, there are different lists.
Was the Peru restaurant on two separate visits or once? Like you liked it so much you went back the next day?
I have done that at places. This was like two separate times in Peru,
Okay. All right.
and both were equally delicious. And I feel very well qualified to proclaim it as my number one because I had it twice years apart.
That's amazing. Okay. So, Sheree, is there anything else, any other advice you would like to give the Lawyer Stories community?
I think just if this is what you want to do, uh, it can be a wonderful career. And don't be afraid to try something different in the legal profession. There are a lot of different areas of practice. Some people want to be individual contributors. Some people want to be legal managers. Some people want to manage legal departments. And some people want to just be a subject matter expertise in a specific area.
Sure.
All of those are wonderful.
Well, you're doing tremendous work at a really cool company. It's been an honor to talk to you and to thank you for sharing your story and a little bit about what you do. I think it's really interesting, and I'm going to try to take back some of those things to my own day to day.
I love it. And it's been such a pleasure to talk to you and to be a part of the Lawyer Stories podcast.
Love it. Please stay right there. Everybody else, thanks for tuning in, and wherever you are in the world today, enjoy yourselves. Cheers.